Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us. We'll let people start getting in, and then we'll get started in a minute or two, okay? All right, I think we can go ahead and get started.
Sure.
First off, welcome everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today for this presentation. I'm really excited and happy to have Brian here with us. And he's going to talk about how to secure your greatest asset, which is your business, from a cyber attack. Just a couple housekeeping notes. This session is being recorded and the recording will be shared after the session. If you have any questions for Brian, please post them in the chat and I'll be monitoring that, and then we'll have time for question and answer at the end. I'm very, very excited to introduce Brian Hamilton. He is the co-founder and CRO of Mad Data IO. He's a serial entrepreneur who started several IT companies, and he loves the challenge of new projects. One of his favorite aspects is being able to work with his wife as his co-founder and his awesome staff, where they're able to do wonderful things together. So Brian will share a little bit more about himself, but I'll let Brian take it from here. Thank you, Brian.
Hey, everyone. Hope you're doing well. Excited to be here with you all. And thank you so much for just showing up so I can share with you. Adri, it's a pleasure. Thank you again. I myself happen to love manufacturing. I grew up in a manufacturing family. So protecting this particular part of the market is super important to me. Let me share with you my screen. One second. So what we're going to talk about today is learn how to secure your greatest asset, which is your business, from a cyber attack. I've been in IT since 2001, and I've learned a lot along the way. And I'll tell you, a lot has changed over the years. This is me and my wife. We started Mad Data IO together, and it's really great to be able to work with your business partner. And so she's a really amazing person, comes with cybersecurity as well. So it's always a pleasure to work with a counterpart that knows what they're doing, and she's really sharp. These are my kids. This is the why. The reason why I do what I do is seeing their lives get made better. And so obviously, you know, based that we have 5 kids together, that life begins at 6 a.m. in the morning. That's when the bombs go off, and they end about 9 o'clock at night. So they're a lot of fun, and we love our kids and we really appreciate them. And I grew up in a cabinet making family. I grew up in Florida. My father was the president of a cabinet company, and I grew up living on floors as the smell of like glue and formica kind of filled the air of my life, pretty much most of my life as a teenager. And I kept thinking to myself, I am not going to do this. And I found myself in college making cabinets just to get through as I was providing for school. So I somehow found myself back into cabinet business. And as we began to get into IT and grow in that field, it became a natural thing to be involved with manufacturing. Our company itself right now makes up 70% of what we take care of is manufacturing support, because we know it so well. So there's a phrase I always use with people is, I always say, like, sawdust is in my veins, just because I lived it for so long with my parents. So the things we want to go over today is what the current cyber landscape is. I want you to know what's going on, what is happening in our environment, what they're doing, different types of attacks that are happening, 5 groups that are under attack, that are being attacked, and also how to protect your business. I feel like the education of each, just so you know, because oftentimes we think, oh, it's not me and it's not going to happen to me. And that's not a place where we want to be at in our thinking. So I want to just bring some education so you know, like, what's happening, what they're doing, why they're doing it, and how you can protect yourself. So our current cyber landscape looks like this. When ransomware began, see that slide, this was, move that out of the way so it doesn't affect y'all. Began when ransomware began in 2010. So by time 2017, it exploded onto the level that you're seeing right there. And every year began to get bigger and bigger and bigger. And I remember during this time frame of 2012, 13, 14, 15, going, man, something is happening in the environment that's completely changed. And hackers began to go away from the I love you virus and things like that. And they went more for a simplistic approach. Hey, we're just going to encrypt everything you got. We're going to hold the key and good luck. And they found that this simpler approach made it easy for them to get a foothold in the business and to extort the business. So this type of explosion of the type of ransomwares that are out there is something you need to be aware of. This chart has actually exploded from where it is there in 2017. And common cyber misconceptions that we see in the marketplace right now is this: hackers wouldn't go after a small company like me. We can never think like that because small businesses really are a petri dish for hackers to play in. The other is, I'm not in a compliance-based business. It doesn't matter. For them, they're not looking whether you're compliant or not, whether you're in finance, whether you're in legal or medical. It's really not about that for them. That's not how they're thinking and what they're trying to get. Ultimately, they're after your money. So it doesn't matter what business it is. That's what they're after. And then the other is we think, I don't collect sensitive data. And then a lot of people think, well, I'm not in medical, so this doesn't affect me. It's not really, it's not my speed. I don't have anything that's important. And so one of the reasons why hackers attack small, medium businesses is because they're low-hanging fruit. They will view low-hanging fruit. They're more vulnerable when it comes to social media because we don't have policies in place of what is allowed and what's not allowed in the business. So allowing like Facebook and social media in your business, that's one of those things that unless you're in the marketing department, you won't allow Facebook to happen. They often feel they must pay the ransom. I've seen a manufacturer here 2 years ago, because they didn't have proper backup in place, they just paid the ransom, and it was a lot of money that they had to pay out, but they feel like it's a must because the other is they're embarrassed that it's happened to them and they don't want people to know. And they are a gateway to large organizations. So what I mean by that is a gateway is hackers will play in small, medium businesses because they know the infrastructure is not in place that's there to protect them. They haven't really invested in that aspect of their business, while they've invested in other aspects that help them grow and to mature and to excel. The IT part of it has not been invested in, because when we began our businesses, we were just like, hey, I just want to get started, want to get going, forget about structure. We're just trying to get it off the ground. We just want to make some money. And as the owners or the owner, their evolution of thinking changes, so does the business. But what I found is IT, even in people buy new companies to acquire, to bring into their organization, they don't really assess the IT either. They are sometimes not targeted at all, but simply collateral damage. You're not the target, someone else was, but will happen, people will send you, a hacker will get into somebody's email and they're just broadcasting out to whomever they can get. So they got into somebody's finances, or they get into somebody's insurance company. And then from the insurance company, they're just going, let's see who we can get from here. The insurance company was always the primary. Now, we had an example of this in Virginia where this insurance company got hacked, and then the chemical manufacturer called us, we happened to take care of, and the owner, George, is going, hey, Brian, I've got a problem. Something isn't right here. I'm like, okay, no problem. Let's take a look. And I looked at the email, and George, who's my dinosaur, he calls himself my dinosaur anyways. I talk IT to him and he looks at me funny, and then he throws his arms up in the air, begins to roar. I'm like, dude, what are you doing? He said, Brian, I'm a dinosaur. I don't get this stuff. Well, we put George through some IT training, and George caught this hack. Well, I called his insurance provider, and come to find out that his insurance company's email was actually hacked, though the owner didn't realize it, nor did the IT group that was providing service to them. They brought it to an IT company, and the IT company said, yeah, it looks everything's fine. What happened was his mailbox got cloned out of a hacking group out of Africa, and over 5.5 gigs of company data of his clients were stolen. They were attempting to make George part of that collateral damage. Why do businesses get hacked? Because we all collect sensitive data. We all rely on technology. We all perform financial transactions, and we have a human workforce. That is the underlying thread amongst all our companies. We collect sensitive data, whether we realize it or not, whether it's things that is corporate or important to us, and want people to know how we do our designs, or the things that we've created that we may have patented on. That's sensitive data. Or it could be just your human workforce, so their social security numbers. You've also got, often what I've found is people's credit cards, they don't realize it. When they type in, they purchase things online, their credit card information sometimes gets put into their computer. They don't know it's there. And what a hacker does, they go in and they find your credit card on your machine. And then next thing you know, you start seeing credit card charges springing right up, and you don't know why. The cause of cyber attacks number one cause of cyber attacks is human error. And that has come from the fact of somebody clicking on a bad email or doing something and realizing they were doing wrong, or some type of attack. So current ransomware trends that I see in the marketplace right now, the main attacks that are happening is phishing attacks. 33% are coming through phishing attacks. The other one is unknown. And then we also have what's called RDP compromise. And what that is remote desktop protocol. That's a way that an owner or somebody in the business can remote into their computers. And it was a practice we did in IT. It feels like for a generation, we did that for 10, 15 years, that people could just remote in, they could work. And it wasn't a problem until ransomware came about. And through RDP, hackers were getting into people's computers and then bringing ransomware throughout the whole business. The average ransomware payout in Q4 of 2022 was $408,000. Just kind of marinate on that for a minute. Do you have that type of money that you can just let go of? The average business interruption downtime from ransomware is around 25 days. We got called into an engineer's office where they had been doing all these design plans, and they had clicked on an email and they had backup. They were using Carbonite, but the particular backup that they had didn't have anti-ransomware in the backup detection. And what happened was they had to rebuild all their drawings for 21 days. And it was a really bad conversation with them. Like, what do we do? And we had to rebuild everything. They lost 3 weeks worth of work. Hacking is also very profitable in comparison to the drug cartels in 1992. The average ransomware attack where they were able to pull in per unit is $140,000 in an attack, as in comparison to a drug cartel in 1992. The operating cost to actually pull that off is $2,500, and the margin is 98%. The other thing that is happening here is there's no deaths when it comes to related to ransomware, and there's no barrier to entry to get into this. You're also going to find that some of the nation states that we deal with are a problem for us, like Russia, where there is a lot of hacking that are coming out of there. There is no anti-hacking laws within the country. Their only law is you cannot hack Russian businesses, but you're more than welcome to hack countries outside of our country. And a lot of those unsavory nations have the same type of setup when it comes to their laws. So we're not playing on the same playing field when it comes to other nations and what they do and what they allow. Here's an example of social engineering that happens. This is an email that was delivered out. And then what happened was with this, to enable encryption, please press that button. And so it gives the idea to somebody within your organization that, oh, hey, this is going to happen. Everything's fine. This is normal. And then what happens is you get like a login screen like this. Hey, go ahead and put your email and your password in there. What essentially they've done is they began to clone your mailbox. This is how they do that. It gives you the idea that what is happening is correct, but in fact, it's not. So what I would tell you with your employees, if they don't know, stop and go ask somebody, especially in this type of situation. We had an engineering firm in Southwest Virginia that this same type of thing happened, and there was hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of emails got sent out from them because somebody within their organization clicked on something like this and they filled this form out. The other is, here's another example of phishing, is when you hover over the mailbox, where is that coming from? And then if you look here, there are 3 S's inside of here. So a hacker what they will do is they will take an email and they'll slightly adjust the spelling. It'll be so minute that you won't realize that something's wrong. And then they'll fill the email full of click here, click here, click here. They want to put like a sense of urgency on you. So you're like, it gets you into this emotional spin of, boy, I've got to do this, something I've got to do. So just be aware that those are the games that they play. The other, I didn't include this in this slide, but this happened to another manufacturer I know is a friend of mine's company, and their finance director kept getting emails from the CEO, or she thought she was, saying, I need you to transfer 250,000, 150,000 to this account. And so she was just doing it. Now, he would do that at times. Hey, I need to transfer some money, but they had no internal protocols in place when it came to money transfer. So she gave away around $500,000 of money and never bothered to ask him, hey, is this, do you need me to do this? Is this you? And what I found out was I did a dark web scan and some of their employee credentials had been compromised. And the hacker grabbed that information and began to weaponize the owner's email account to the CFO or the finance director. And we turned it into claims and they really get some of their money back, but that's kind of the attack that you're dealing with. Also, you also have something called ransomware as a service platform that anyone could get into, log in through the dark web, and hackers will work together. They'll help you get started just so this is how they make money. You don't have to be an IT professional to get into this. And I recently saw in the last year a post, the dark web, they were hiring people. If you had some really amazing hacking skills, they were getting paid around $500,000 for 6 months worth of work. So for them, it's very profitable. Here are the groups that are under attack that I have found. These numbers go back to 2021 and 2022. Is the 5 targets of ransomware that I have found there's an unknown section in there of 5,434. These are folks we know that's happened. They've never told what business sector that they were in. Public administration was 1. Finance, for obvious, is number 2. Professional services, that can be anything. That could be plumbing, HVAC, electrical, that kind of bundle that in together. But manufacturing was in the top of that list at 2,337 hits that year of companies that were breached. What we found from that data that we've extrapolated was there are 3 times as many attacks on small businesses as opposed to medium to large businesses. So the idea of thinking, well, I'm a small business, they're not looking for me. Unfortunately, that's not true. I wish it was. But the data tells us from all the numbers that we looked at that small business is the target so they can get into larger companies. The hacking attack that happened in Target a couple of years ago came through their HVAC vendor. He got attacked, which then he brought that attack into Target itself. Why manufacturing? Well, here's some things that are happening in our space that we need to be aware of. We have legacy equipment with software that is outdated. We use PLC, CNCs, they're using XP still. So to actually upgrade that equipment itself is so expensive just to deal with that. It's what we do every day. It's what we use in order to build the products that we make. But the problem with the software that they have included with it, it's so old. And the manufacturer of that equipment is not even willing to deal with updating it. They're just like, here, let me sell you a new piece of equipment. So that's a problem. Networks were set up quickly and security was not considered. What I have found with most owners I've talked with, great people, passionate about what they do, but the whole driver was, let's just get going. Like a lot of people when they started their business, let's just get going. That's not a criticism of them, but we're just getting going. We're building what we have. But to actually go back and fix it and set it up correctly the way it needs to be now, it's operating under an old framework that was wonderful for its day, but under today's conditions, it presents a huge liability and risk that the factory is carrying. Open sharing, which makes it easy for an attack. A lot of folks have just open sharing. You walk into, somebody brings their computer into your network and they can see those drives. If somebody can bring their computer into the network and see those drives very easily. So if a hacker breaches a computer, it can get to all those shared drives. The other thing I found, which totally made me take a step back, some ERP softwares tell manufacturers you don't need security. I got into a flat argument with a guy last year in Atlanta, and he kept telling me, don't put IT security on your manufacturing. I'm like, why? He says, well, it makes our software run slow. So you just told all these people you're selling software to, because it may slow your software down a little bit. The real reason why it slowed down because the security wasn't set up correctly. That's the real answer. But because they don't want to deal with that, they just said, don't put security on your manufacturing PCs. Now, for me as a provider, I was absolutely going insane. And so we're arguing back and forth. And I'm like, dude, do you realize just the liability that you've opened up for all these people that you told this misinformation to? They're going to go back home and they're going to do this because you said it, but you gave them wrong information. You're a software seller. You're not a security person. Please stop telling people how to handle their security in their businesses. So when you run across people like that, just remember, take a mental note. I need to talk to IT about this. All right. Proper network backups are not in place. It's really important to have backup in place. What I found with an attack, a lot of manufacturers are not set up in their backups. So if a hacker or even physical theft happens, they don't know how to get back up and running. We had a factory in Dallas that we support that happened was they use a product called Microvellum, and somebody came in, just not even hacking, just pure theft, broke into the factory and just ripping things off the walls and stealing everything. When they walked in, they found this PC. It was their Microvellum server and they stole it. And the owner calls me. It was like, Brian, I can't do Microvellum today. I said, Drew, no problem. We got this. And I spun up his backup. It was a virtualized. He was back up and running in an hour. And it was like it never even happened because it completely cloned that box. And their engineers are up and running. Factory's up and running. Everything was backed up. And we set it up virtualized. They were up and running within an hour. So you have the proper backup in place. If there is theft or ransomware, you can be back up in a few hours instead of days. Using Hotmail, Yahoo, or Gmail for business communications. Again, this goes back to when we began our business. We used that because it was free. But that's a problem too as well, because you can't secure those platforms because Gmail, Yahoo, and Hotmail is not going to let you in the background to change the security settings. Because nobody knows who I am. That's why I found it kind of a prevalent thinking amongst business owners in general. And also I have found that tend to deal with things when they absolutely have to. It's better to deal with it in advance than when you absolutely have to, because it always costs 5 times more when you absolutely have to do it. So how do we protect your business? How do you protect it? First thing I would encourage you to do is get a network risk assessment is a must. The reason why I say this, because when we do these network risk assessments, it shows us what we don't know. We find the things that are broken, and we can bring it to an owner's attention, say, hey, look, this risk assessment was done. Here's all the vulnerabilities. And so it reveals what you don't know. Now, you're going to have a feeling when you go through something like this, like, my IT is horrible. Don't feel that way. You're going to want to feel that way, but don't feel that way. It's what's being brought up to you is, here's an issue. Now let's just fix it. It's simple as that. And a simple plan of action is put in place, or a POAM that is put in place, plan of action with milestones that tell you this is what we need to do. I can't pay for all that. I get it. So let's start at the simple things and begin to secure that. And let's create an 18-month roadmap to get you there. So that way it's not like you're having to eat the elephant all at once, just one bite at a time. So one of the things that we need to have in place is antivirus with SOC monitor. So what that is SOC means Security Operations Center. That is operation centers that have 24-hour monitoring with live people involved. A SOC person or a cybersecurity person costs around $250,000 per person, and they get a cyber expert like that. So what we like to do is we get connected with companies that provide SOC, and they monitor our computers for us. Now they're not looking at your Word or Excel or your company files, but what they are doing is they're scanning your machines 24/7 to make sure if a hacker were to get a foothold, it either blocks the foothold, number one, or if they start an attack, they stop the attack dead in its tracks. And then also, if something's going on, we get emails about it. Let us know, company this machine, there's a problem here, you need to look at it. So we can proactively look at something and know the issues here. The other is something called MDR, Managed Detection and Response. What that does, and this kind of gives you the attack vector of what a hacker does, and I'll go over that for a second. But MDR, in its simplest form, is imagine 21 children being in a room, and one of the kids just starts yelling and screaming and getting angry. The teacher tries to calm the child down, and the child won't calm down. So what they do is they take that child off into another room by themselves, kind of more of a quiet room for them to work out their emotions, while the rest of the class is undisturbed. So what good MDR does is takes that computer and puts it in its own IT quiet room so it can't affect other machines. Now, why is this important? When an attacker or a hacker hits, they get that initial access. And then what they do, they begin this persistent attack on other machines. And then once they have that persistent attack begin to gain foothold on other machines, then they're looking for privileged access. And what that means is they're looking for the finance person, they're looking for HR, they're looking for somebody who has the ability, they're even looking for somebody in IT that would accidentally give them credentials. Then once they get the credentials in place, then they begin to do a discovery, because now they have the ability to go wherever they want to go. And then begin to do what's called a lateral move. And they're basically doing IT leapfrog. So great MDR, what it will do, it'll stop an attack dead in its tracks. A hacker will sit on a computer network, sometimes up to 8 months before they encrypt it. So you'll see businesses that everything was fine on Friday. Nothing seemed to be wrong. Come Monday morning, everything's encrypted and nobody knows why, because they've been there that long and you didn't know it. That's called, the term that's used in our world is called laying on the land. So MDR stops that laying on the land type of activity from happening. The other is proper access controls. Now, what that means is you're using either something called like Azure AD or Jump Cloud or a server. Some of your environments that are on here, you don't have a server. So you handle that by using a product called Jump Cloud or using Azure. They can bring access control. Now, what that means is that nobody has administrative privileges. They can't install stuff as they want to. Now, what you will have is engineers and different ones will get upset because they just can't download whatever they want to download. And I appreciate the fact that that's what they were able to do at one time, but because the world we're living in now, it has shifted. So now we have to tell them, no, you can't download that without administrative privileges. By the way, we can't let you have the administrative password. Our engineers are incredibly smart people. They could have done IT. They just happen to choose engineering. Their mindsets are the same. However, the security responsibility is not the same. So we have to lock down a network where a password gets changed every 90 days. And this is the part of IT that's not fun, because it's like, man, why do I have to do this? I didn't have to do this before. And you're right. Like, why? Like, I didn't have to do this before. That feeling that you have is correct. It's not fair. However, in order to protect your business, in order to protect your money machine and your clients, and also your employees, these are the type of controls that have to be in place. So if somebody puts in their password wrong 5 times, it automatically locks that computer, because a hacker will continue to use different passwords trying to break into that account. Well, after 5 bad attempts, the account's locked. What stops a hacker dead in its tracks? The other is having email filtering and using a business.com email, whether you're going to be using Office or using Google Workplace, and then also putting email filtering for spam filtering. That right there will do a lot of good for the businesses, having email filtering into the business and stopping the type of prolific attacks. I have found in our customer base that we service is, for every 10,000 emails they have coming in, they are under like 15 to 20,000 emails that are attacking their business, literally 2, 3 to 1. For every good email, there's 3 bad coming at them, whether it's spam or whether it's some type of cybersecurity attack. And that's where the Yahoo and the Hotmail and the Gmail, as wonderful as they were as a free product, it doesn't do what this does. They don't have the control in the background that you need. MFA, or multi-factor authentication, on all your email. What this does, it prevents your email from being cloned. So MFA is incredibly important. Your cybersecurity policies, if you have them, I would not be surprised if they deny you insurance coverage if you don't have MFA in place. This is a now golden rule that has to be in place for insurance companies to even do business with you. So just be aware of that. If you don't have that, your cyber liability policy, that will not happen. And then also on your online business solutions that you're using, whether that is QuickBooks Online, whether that's your business banking, anything that has to do with finance in your business that has important information, make sure you have multi-factor authentication turned on. Some of your banks that you do business with have it, but they don't force you to turn it on. Their idea is that is on you to do that. It's not their responsibility. They've just provided it. So just be aware of that. Call your bank, find out, hey, do I have this? I want to turn this on if you're not already doing it. Backups on data that is in-house. Make sure that your important pieces of business that you do, your servers, like your Microbellum server, if you're using that, any server-based solution that you're using that order to make your business run, man, we have one factory that literally every piece of equipment in the factory that's on the production line is being backed up, every single one of them. So if that piece of equipment goes down, we can spin that up virtually, put a new hard drive in, restore the data back into that device, and they're back up and running as fast as we can get them turned up. So for them, it's not like, how do we do this? What was the configurations? It's easy. It's already kept and it's virtualized and backed up for you. And the other is when someone is doing backup for you, they need to make sure that they're sending you copies of, yeah, we're backing this up, and these are our test backups that we run. So you can't have a set it and forget it type attitude of like, well, the backup's there, it's working. That may not necessarily be the case. Maybe the backups have been failing and nobody bothered to take a look at it. You just don't want to be on that day when you're in a disaster recovery situation and you can't restore your backup. Firewall monitoring or a follow me firewall. If you have a mobile workforce that's running around in the field, you need to make sure you have a follow me firewall software on those machines. That way, those machines don't get hit. Like, for example, going into a Starbucks or someplace that's free Wi-Fi, that's cool and all, but it's basically you're showing up to the worst part of town unprotected, is what I would say you're doing in terms of the IT world. So when you have a follow me firewall software on your machine, what that does, it makes you invisible. The hacker knows something's there, but they don't know what it is. It's kind of like Frodo when he popped on the ring in front of the dragon. So completely disappeared. So having that in place and also have a proper firewall monitoring. What I have seen is people put firewalls in, but a lot of IT people have left the default passwords in place on those things and the owner doesn't know it. And it's been that way for years. I have gone into places and I have found that the internal IT has left default passwords on stuff. And I was just there doing work and I thought, I wonder if I can get into this. And I just clicked, I'm like, wait, I can get into their Wi-Fi. How can I do that? I should be able to do that. And then this is what I did. I looked at an IP address. I'm like, that doesn't look right. Where does that take me to? And I kept going and kept going. And everything I got into was based on the fact they had default passwords on everything all the way down to the modem. And it was easy to find those default passwords because I put in the product name. I browsed the product name and asked for what is the default username and password. And I got it. I didn't do anything with it. I went to go talk to the internal IT person that ran these 5 car dealerships. And I shared with him some vulnerabilities I found in something else. And he was like, listen, man, we're good. I got everything covered. I'm like, okay, never mind. And you got it. Okay. But I found he didn't have it. And he had a lot of vulnerabilities in that network. So one of the things that we said that we would do for y'all, if you were interested, if you wanted it, we would just provide you, because like I love manufacturing. I grew up in a manufacturing family. The manufacturing for me is super important because I don't know, I'm kind of old school America, and my thinking is that it built our nation. So manufacturing it's really the heartbeat of our nation because you can create stuff. So I just said, Adria, like, look, I'll give away free assessments just so people can see what's going on in their network, so they don't feel like they have to pay for it. Normally we charge like $5,000 for an assessment, but we're just going to give it to y'all. And then the thing we really do is run a dark web scan to see if any of your company information is out there for free. Just because the fact is we want to make sure that you guys are protected and that you're secure. So do you have any questions for me at all?
Thank you so much, Brian. That was, I took 4 pages of notes myself, just because that was a lot of really good insights and some great tips and stuff. So I can personally relate. Passwords, got to work on those for myself. And I can tell you our firewall here at work, or not the firewall, the spam filters and the emails and stuff. If you've emailed me, if you're on this call, then sometimes it gets caught in spam, but I'm glad it does because there's thousands of them every day. It's amazing how persistent these folks are at getting into our systems. So thank you, Brian. If anyone has any questions, we have 2 raised hands, so let me go to those. Ted, go ahead.
Can you hear me then?
I can.
Oh,
How are you?
great. I have a CNC router with a controller. And one of the nice things is they offer software, which is a simulator that you can put on your PC. So you can simulate your CNC router jobs without actually being on the machine. I noticed that my Norton antivirus really doesn't like it. It throws up a bunch of errors. And when I talk to the company, they'd say, "Oh, we don't like Norton." And I'm wondering, is there a resource I can turn to find out, is this a real problem, or is it a something that I could ignore?
Are you talking about the actual vulnerability of it, or just, I'm trying to understand the question better, so forgive me.
Sure. I may not know.
Okay, that's no worries.
Yeah. Norton will throw something up and say that the software is trying to write somewhere that Data Protector doesn't want to let it write.
Okay, I got it now. Yeah, so what has to be done with that is when particular software, you have to put allows in place that you're basically whitelisting that product. And when you whitelist it, it knows that this product's okay and what is happening with here is legitimate.
And so, Brian, how do I judge if it's okay to whitelist it versus I really appreciate that Norton is preventing it from doing what it's doing?
Yeah, so in terms of, forgive me because I just don't know Norton, the products we use allow us to whitelist programs and their directories of where they're at and where things are being written to.
So I believe I've seen that I believe it's what you're calling whitelist this program.
Yeah.
But if it actually is a bad actor, if somebody has hacked the simulator and put stuff in there, I wouldn't want to whitelist it.
Well, I understand that. The foothold will begin first in your PCs on your network itself. That's where the attack's going to begin first. That is a secondary attack going after product like that. So by time, if they've gotten to that point, they've already done damage in other places.
Thank you.
Yeah. Does that help?
It does.
Okay. There was someone else that had their hand up. Oh,
I did see that. Yes. Thanks, Ted. That was a good question. Carl, did you have a question?
No, that was a mistake. I apologize.
Oh, sorry about that. Okay. All right. I don't see any questions in the chat right now. We can go ahead and wrap up, and this is your last call. If you have any questions for Brian while he's here with us, you can go ahead and chat those in or raise your hand. Oh, I do see a raised hand. Here we go. Okay, Yaroslav, I'm really sorry if I said that wrong. Hi, how are you?
I'm great. I hope you are great too. Could you elaborate a bit about the dark web scan that you've told us about on the last slide? Is this something that our IT department could do periodically, or like you need some kind of special permissions, or can you elaborate on that?
sure. Yeah. So I have a dark web license. I run that, and it allows me to scan what credentials that are out there on the dark web. So you either have to purchase it through somebody, and that's how you do it. And so what it does, a dark web scan, we take your company email address, not the full email address, but it's at and the rest of the .com, and we scan that. And it reveals to us what credentials are out on the dark web. And so then we come to you and say, hey, look, these are the credentials out there. This is what's been stolen. And this is how we can help. And these are the areas that you need to tighten up at. lot of it comes through like Facebook. People use their business accounts in Facebook. And so when something happens to Facebook, it happens to the business because people use the same password, unfortunately. So yeah, we could run that for you. Does your internal IT department have that ability right now? Do you know?
As far as I know, they don't. But I mean, they might have to some extent, but I'm not sure if it's the same that you are using. So I would appreciate if you could share what kind of license do you have or something, if that's not a secret.
Yeah, no worry, no worry. Actually, mine is actually a reseller account. So you'd have to be in what I do in order to get access to it.
Oh, okay, I understand.
Yeah, and mine, yeah, unfortunately it is. So I will put some things out there for y'all here real quick in the chat if you want it.
Thank you. I'd appreciate that.
Yeah, no worries. Not trying to be mysterious at all. And the other is, if you want to make use of that network assessment, I'll put it in the chat so you can grab to it. It's on the slides along with my, I did go into the last part of my presentation, last 2 pages, but as my contact information, and if you just want us to run an assessment, there's a chat for everyone if you want that.
All right, thanks, Brian, and good question. Eric, you have a question?
I do. I appreciate you letting me raise my hand. The question I had is, I'm familiar with Know-Before. I've had some experience with that for training modules. Is that the software that you would recommend for the smaller companies out there, or do you offer something, or what would you recommend?
We do something different. We use a product called ID Agent, but like I said, you have to be a reseller for it. They do the same thing that Know-Before does. I like it because of this is the employee training that you get. Know-Before does that, but also hooks into your, if you're using not AWS, what am I saying? If you're using Azure, it lets us know right away if there's a problem with Azure for your email. And what I mean by Azure, folks, if you don't know, it's Outlook email, Outlook business email, Office 365. Forgive me, sometimes when you get technical, it kind of goes up here for some folks, and I didn't mean to do that, so I'm sorry. So it's your business email, and it also work with Google Workplace as well.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Eric. All right, Mary. Hi, how are you?
Hang on. Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hey, I have a question. We have a current IT company that monitors all that we pay a good amount to monthly. I'm wondering, do you still think that we should take advantage of the program that you're offering to, to 30 members to take a look at everything? Since I have a current IT company, do you think I should also have Brian's group check them as well, just to make sure that everything is as up to date as possible?
I would, because 1/3 of all IT people think ransomware is going away. Right? That's in our industry. That's an industry problem on our side of it. I didn't bring that statistic up for time, but literally 1/3 of IT people think ransomware is going to go away. The other is I found that what is being secured, some things are not being properly secured. So all this is doing a checkup of whether they are doing what they say they're doing. And then,
Okay, super. And then how do we put our names into that? How do we sign up for that, Brian?
Sure. I put it into the chat under Zoom.
Okay.
And then you'll see my email and chat under Zoom, my email address, and then also the URL that you need to go to.
Okay.
And you that want to do that free dark web scan, just send me an email. And then what I'll do is I can run that scan. Anyone who sends it me today, it's funny, I'm at a factory right now helping out with an email migration just there. My team's doing it, but I'm just here just to make sure everything goes fine. But you just send me an email, I'll run the scan today and I can get you back your results. of what it looks like for your business on the dark web.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. And that goes for anybody that's on here as well.
All right.
Any other questions?
Yeah. And just making sure everyone heard, if you go to the chat, you can see Brian's email and the link to the assessment. So take him up on this wonderful, generous opportunity. It's super cool. I'm not seeing any more questions right now, so I think we can close it out. Brian, you mentioned you had a couple more slides. Should we bounce back to those, or what do you think?
Yeah, I can share those real quick so they can take
Okay.
a snapshot with their phone.
Cool.
So if you need to get a hold of me, that's a way to get a hold of me right there. And that's my LinkedIn, my cell phone number, and my email address. And then for those who didn't see it, and this is the next part, is just the URL that needs to go to if you want to fill out for that assessment. And that's the web address right there.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Brian.
No worries.
We'll go ahead and wrap up. So thank you all for joining us. I hope this was really informative for you. I found it fascinating. If you could please complete this brief survey, you can click on the QR code there on your screen or go to the SurveyMonkey link that you see and just go ahead and share your feedback with me and Brian. I'd love to hear any other topics you'd like to see as webinars or sessions in the future. And I know Brian values hearing feedback from his attendees. Our next webinar will be Tuesday, March 28th with Dr. Kuehl. It'll be our quarterly economic update. And I'm very excited to share that Brian Hamilton will be a speaker for us at the AWFS Fair in Las Vegas. He's a slightly different topic on protecting your systems and supply chain in order to keep labor costs low. So I'm sure you saw today that Brian is a wealth of knowledge, and we look forward to that session. Registration for the sessions will be opening in late April, early May. So if you have any other questions or anything, feel free to reach out to me. My email is there. You can find us on social and on the web there. And thank you all for being here again. I hope you have a wonderful day, and we'll see you next time. Take care.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brian.